The Vietnam War is viewed as one of the most controversial and deadly conflicts in American history. Over 3 million veterans served during that battle. One of them was the 19-year-old Mickey Amadeo.
I was drafted, back in 1968.
Mickey says the decision was an obvious choice. He'd come from a military family and a humble upbringing, and knew it was the only way he'd get an education.
I was going to be shipped to Vietnam. I had 30 days to go home, enjoy my free time at home, and that's exactly what I did. I went home. At that time, I didn't know if I was coming back or whatever was going to happen.
The unknown scared the teenager, but reality would soon hit even harder when he landed.
The first day that I got there, there was a lot of bombing in the area. A lot of that time, the plane landing, and there was a lot of stuff going on. Of course, I got a little scared.
Mickey arrived at the peak of the Vietnam War in the late 60s. Lyndon B. Johnson was president, and the conflict was beginning to be viewed in a negative light here in America. Still, the New York native had a job to do and orders to follow.
I saw some action up there that I really didn't want to see. I saw some grotesque stuff that I really didn't want to see.
For Mickey, looking back is still emotional, especially one particular event.
It was on Mother's Day. They bombed the camp where I was at, and we had about 175 wounded at that time. Fortunately, we didn't have anybody killed at that time, but it was, it was one of the saddest days in my time because it was a Mother's Day, and so I know that I picture of a lot of mothers receiving bad news during that time.
Over 50,000 soldiers were killed in that war, a couple of which were Mickey's friends and colleagues.
To this day, I still remember those fallen comrades. Sometimes I get sad. I kind of shy away from talking to anybody about those things because I don't like talking about those things.
For this GI, he'd seen enough. He was ready to head back home and leave the service. But his time off would be short-lived.
The soldiers were not welcomed that much back because of what happened in Vietnam.
At the time, these servicemen who had sacrificed their lives for their country weren't being hailed as heroes, but as villains.
It was not my fault. I did what I was told while I was there. And that it was not a welcoming back home. So I went back because I felt more welcome in the military.
So welcomed, he ended up serving his country for the next 22 years. These days, Mickey is a representative for the Texas Workforce Commission in Edinburgh. He helps vets coming back home from war find normalcy. But Mickey isn't jaded. He says even though the Vietnam experience scarred him for life, it gave him the opportunity to travel around the world and even experience historical moments.
As a matter of fact, I was in Berlin when the wall came down.
But above all, he says, it taught him the most valuable lesson of all.
When you're in the service, and I'm trying to picture, I was 19 when I went into the service, you get to see how other parts of the country, how they do their business compared to what the freedom that we have here in the United States. So you really, when you come back home, you get to see and enjoy the freedom that you have.